needs to be up.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 14th meeting. Pledge of allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Is there any public input tonight? Okay, one at a time. If you wouldn't mind, please get up and state your name.
Okay. My name is Robert Kerber, and I live on the Emon Road, the north end of town. And, I believe that every resident of Caribou should have available to them unlimited, dependable, high-speed internet. I cannot get this where I live. Now, just to back up a little bit, I built my modular house there in the summer of '05, and two other families west of me down the street also built modular homes that summer. We contacted Time Warner Cable. The rep came out. He checked out. He says, no, we ain't going to run the cable. All right, so that's summer of '05. I had dial-up internet until about 5 years ago. Then I was able to get U.S. Cellular 4G LTE internet. However, I'm only limited to 10 gigs per month. It's unreliable. It's undependable. When Spectrum bought Time Warner Cable, I called them up again. They sent a rep out. He came out. He talked to me. He says, well, we'll split the cost with you running a cable up to your house. So I said, all right, what are we talking here? He says, your share would be $3,000. I says, forget it. Thanks, but no thanks. So, I mean, these days, having reliable, dependable, unlimited high-speed internet available to you is like having a telephone in your house 40 years ago. You have to have it. I do all my online banking with Katahdin Bank. I pay my bills through Katahdin ePay. But, I go on Amazon and Walmart.com, but the thing is, I just bought a new flat screen TV. Well, you know what? It don't come with an owner's manual. It says go on Vizio.com. So that didn't happen either. I'm an Amazon Prime member. I get emails from Amazon all the time. How come you're not using your streaming service? I don't have internet. Spectrum's got the cable. It stops on Emon Road about 1,000 feet east of me. Okay, so it does come up there, but they won't run it. So I'm just saying, dependable, reliable, unlimited high-speed internet, it needs to be available. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir. If you won't mind, we're going to go through all the people that would like to speak, and then I'll ask the council if they have any comments on any individual. Okay. Okay. Next.
Good evening. I'm Diane Gove from the River Road. On your agenda this evening, you're going to be discussing and taking possible action for the reconstruction of the River Road. And I'd just like to ask you to consider approving the design work and go out to bid in March or April for this work. I know you don't want to spend $1 million, none of us do. But if this has to be done, or we do know that work has to be done to the road, even though it has been filled in, guardrails are 10 feet down, so those have to be repaired. There's still work that has to be done. Consideration to this would be because if you go out to work to bid early, contractors will be available. If you wait until August or September, they would have already had their work that they're doing for 2019. Not to mention, if you go out to bid in March or April, instead of waiting until the end of the year, hopefully materials would be cheaper. Fuel would be cheaper. Our days would be longer for them to work. Whereas if you wait until fall, the days are shorter. The weather changes. And so hopefully we'll have a good summer for them to have the work done. So maybe this is something that's done in the specs anyway, that there may be a change in the scope of the specs so that if that is put in the specifications, so that come spring, when you do look at the road, maybe as much work doesn't have to be done. So this can be the change to the specifications that go out to the contractors. So I'd just like to be able to have you consider this, because if it's 1.1 or 1.2 million dollars right now to have, if we have to do the whole road, if it looks like it has to be, if you wait until later, maybe it'll cost 1.4 or 5 million to be able to have it repaired because of the materials being more expensive or because we don't have the contractors. So I would just like to have you really consider approving the design and the scope of the work so that the engineers can put everything out to bid. And if I remember correctly, I think originally this agenda item was going to be talked about in October and possibly approved according to when we were talking about all of this stuff, so that they could go out to bid the first thing. So I would just like to have you consider this. And also, the traffic on the River Road, I mean, it's incredible. We've always had a lot of traffic, but I know there's a lot of people that use the River Road that don't want to use Fort Hill. So we do need the road. And by the way, thank you for the light at the end of the River Road on the Fort End. It's awesome to be able to see when you turn. So thank you for your consideration.
Anybody else?
Mayor God and council members, my name is Milo Haney. I'm here tonight to talk to you about, on the agenda, number 9, letter B. It says discussion and possible action regarding resolution 01/01/2019 supporting construction of a new public safety building for the Caribou Police, Fire, and EMS. I think looking around the city, seeing how much money we're spending here and how the budget went up last year, $900,000 higher than what it was the year before, I really don't believe we can afford to do anything at this point in time, and I would like the council to consider putting that off for a while, or forever, as far as I'm concerned, but for a while anyway, to see if how much the school's going to cost us, because right now I've been hearing horror stories about the designs of it, and I was one that brought it up at a meeting for the school of how much extra it was going to cost us above and beyond this $2.5 million that they were asking for the second gym and larger music room. And we were told that night that it wasn't going to cost us one extra cent. Well, guess what? Right out of the hole, it was $12 million higher than what it was when we started. So we're in a crisis right now with that. Limestone pulled out, RSU 39, they pulled out of RSU 39, so we're on the hook for their share of this money also. So I believe that we're looking at some real high taxes here in the next few years. So I'd like to put this on hold, if possible, but it's up to you, councilors, to decide that. Also, line item number 10, item B, says council's priorities and goals for the 2019. I would like to see, a few years back, we brought in signatures for zero-based budgeting, and it got us nowheres. In fact, it just escalated into a whole bunch of stuff that shouldn't have ever gone on, but it did. I would like to see this council implement zero-based budgeting so people can see what's going on in this town. I would like to know why, and I will be asking this question here shortly. Why are we $900,000 higher than last year on the budget? To me, that seems like it's ludicrous. I can understand a few thousand, but 900,000, that's a lot for 1 year. So I'd like to see zero-based budget implemented so we can see where this is going. So as part of one of your goals, I wish you would consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public comment period. Any comments on Roberts? I hope you don't mind me using your first name, sir.
Fine.
On Roberts' points.
Well, this kind of hits home to me. Out on the end of the Grimes Road, we have two businesses out there. My neighbor's business is mine, and it's very difficult to conduct business when you're having to deal with a hotspot. It's unreliable. I can agree with Bob's sentiments here. I mean, reliable internet, and I think if we can all collectively get together and figure something out that's cost effective for the city in order to get internet out to businesses in the rural area. You get a lot of farmers out there. So I agree with Bob. It's something that I'd like to see.
Thank you, Tom. Dave?
Yeah, we got data from the manager on uncable mileage in town from Spectrum, and it says the Emon Road has 1.6 miles of uncable mileage, and the next column says houses per uncable road and houses per mile, and it says 0, 0. So if Bob lives beyond that, his data is not right. I mean, you're talking getting internet through cable, is that correct?
Yes, because Spectrum offers unlimited internet, it's a good deal. I'm about a half a mile up from Route 1. Okay?
And there are houses beyond you.
Yes. There's two houses beyond me, and there's one across from them, so okay, I guess that's Connor. But like I said, the cable does come up to my neighbor to the east of me, Lucas Roy. He's about 800 feet east of me, so I know it comes up to there, but like I said, they wanted me to pay $3,000 to extend it from his house to my house. Can't afford that when you're retired.
Our house is the same. We're 700 feet past the limit of fiber optic, and Spectrum won't come on our road at all. It goes by our road, but won't come up our road.
Any other comments from the council? Council Bob will be addressing our contract with Time Warner Cable this year. We start it tonight, but we're going to have to go through it a couple of times. Perhaps you will be called upon to come to a meeting or two in the very near future. sir.
Whenever, I think we all agree it's important these days to have high-speed internet because
Thank you.
Church.
On Diane, any comments on Diane? Once again, I'm going to use first names. On Diane's comment?
Yeah, we talked about that too, because the reason that she's here tonight is because there was a little blurb on the bottom of one of the pages that said somebody thought that we should wait until the spring thaw to even do anything, and I agree that we should be able to put the bids out in March, even though we can wait until the spring thaw and take a look, but if we don't get this started, we may not get a contractor this year at all. So that's the reason, if we could go forward and then wait until the spring thaw to maybe see what needs to be done. But there is drainage that absolutely has to be done. That can't, whether we wait to spring thaw or not, that can't be not part of it, and can look and see. But for the rest of it, it may not have to be fancy or anything else, but I don't think we should wait until spring thaw to do the engineering, and because then you'll be well into the fall before you can even put it up for bid.
Any other comments?
I guess I'll address that. It'll, by putting it out for bid, it'll give us a solid price.
Right.
Because we're talking 1.2, 1.4. We get, this goes out now, then our final decision will be made on the bid, but it may be 1.5, it could be 1.1, we're just kind of using a guesstimate here.
Does make a difference in the work if we
Difference in the
find that
work.
we don't need anything.
This item's on the agenda, and we can discuss it when we get to that item. And no other comments? Okay, Milo's comment? Okay, hearing none, we will now move on. Thank you all. We'll move on to the minutes of the December 10th. I've asked Jane. Jane, could you please give us a brief interpretation of who is able to vote on minutes of the meeting?
According to Robert rules, a member's absent from the meeting for which minutes are being approved does not prevent the member from participating in their correction or approval.
Okay.
Okay, so they can vote for those minutes in December, the two new counselors.
Two new councilors. Okay, thank you very much. You have the minutes in front of you. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes. Appointment, number 6, bid openings, awards, and appointments. Appointment of zoning appeals board and planning board members. There's 2 positions. Dennis, would you please give us a brief job description of the zoning appeals board?
So we have by state law requirement to have a planning board to consider issues with our land use codes and the application of those on development. If somebody doesn't like what that decision is, they can appeal it. And that appeal group is the zoning appeal body. And so I know they haven't met or had an appeal since I've been here. I think it's been several years. Never?
They've never had one since they've been made up of regional members. Back a few years ago, when Steve Wentworth worked for the city, he came up with the concept of having a regional board. A lot has to do with impartiality, plus they're also trained code enforcement officers. So all 5 members are from that type of group. And they've never met that I'm aware of.
But their purpose is to hear appeals of land use decisions.
Okay, thank you. We have 1 position open, and we have a candidate, Christine Solomon. Chair will entertain a motion from council to accept Christine Solomon to fill the position on the Caribou Planning Board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Motion passed. We have a position on the planning board for the planning board. Excuse me. Dennis, could you give a brief description on that?
The planning board, as I indicated, we have adopted a Title 13, which is all of our land use regulations that pertain to zoning and how properties get developed. And the planning board looks at the application of those laws, the general plan of the city, the application of trying to implement the general plan by having zoning laws and whatnot. And so that board meets on a monthly basis. And generally they're the ones that approve any new development that comes in at this point.
Thank you. We have a position opened on the planning board, and we have a person, Mr. Donald Cody, who has expressed interest.
This is zoning board.
I'm sorry.
Just-
You are right. I apologize. I did have them backwards. Hey, I'm nervous. Okay. So the motion then is for Donald Cody to be on
Zoning board.
the zoning board.
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Boy, did I mess that up. Any discussion?
You have to move it. I move that Donald Cody be appointed to the zoning board of appeals.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? I apologize. Gee. Number 6, B. Discussion of possible action regarding the engineering services for the reconstruction of the River Road. Last year, sometime in May, the infrastructure of the River Road experienced what can only be explained as an unforeseen event: the collapse of a section of the roadway. And because this event occurred so close to several homes, it only enhanced the severity of the event. Over the past year, the council has approached this event on 3 fronts. First, we dealt with the safety of the homeowners. Second, the temporary repair to allow residents of the River Road access to their community. And now third, dealing with the repair of the section of that road. The safety of the homeowners and the temporary access of the River Road residents have been addressed and will continue to be addressed by the council. With some preliminary work being done, the council now enters into the conversation of fixing this infrastructure. Council has received in their packet the issue of the River Road repair. Council recognizes over the past year emotions have been elevated due to the combination of the 3 events. We are now going to enter the singular conversation on the subject of repair. Council Chair opens the floor for discussion. We've discussed it a little already. Council will now, if there's no other discussion, council will accept the motion.
I would move that we accept the bid from Dubois and King to continue the, let's see, the rest of the design work and start that as soon as possible, so by the end of January, or have it start it by the end of January so that we could probably put out a bid by March or so.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Well, I have a discussion then. I'm supposed to be neutral, and I try to be, but then there's a time when I get to express my opinion. So this is the time. I was the one that suggested we probably wait until May. The comment was made that we could change the scope of the design when we see what happens in May. And already we're talking about sending it out, getting it done in March. Or start the process in March when we don't even know what might happen in May. I believe that if the River Road fill, as what's been done now, does not move, the scope of the work of what we would do to fix it could very well easily change, and the $120,000 might not be required. If the River Road were to move again in the severity that it did, then by all means we could put it out to bid, and I do not believe there will be a problem with finding contractors at that time of year. I know we've had issues on High Street because contractors didn't want to do that work, but that was dealing with traffic. I believe that we will find contractors so that the road could be repaired before the end of next year, if it were to move. I'd like to have options before we spend $120,000. That's my opinion. Any other discussion before we go to vote?
I kind of see both sides of it, but I also think that starting early is important because doing bid process can definitely take a long time to do a fair bid process. and we could accept bids and not award the contract until we made a further decision in May if we need to change the scope of work and then have the bids adjusted. I know that doesn't take care of the $120,000, but it at least puts us in the right position to make a decision and not have our hands tied later in the year.
I agree with Nicole. If the slope moves again, and who knows, it probably will. You can look at that river right now, and it still has 12-inch ice chunks out there because I look at it every day. Something may happen. Is there any way that we could maybe potentially ask them, if this happens, can you also have some sort of scope to what the contractors would have to do at that point? Kind of like a what if almost. If they're going to engineer the thing already, well, what happens if another, 2,000 yards of dirt goes or something like that? I don't know. Is that a possibility? Just be a little proactive on the thing. And then that way the contractors know exactly what they're getting into.
The motion on the table, as I understand it, is to authorize the spending of that money to do that work.
That's as I understand it.
Yep.
But the contract being awarded would be decided by the council, correct? They would not be initiating that.
Right. The contract this work would extend through the contract, but the actual
Right.
awarding of the bid, that would be done by the council at a future date. So this does not tell somebody, yes, you can go start moving dirt.
That's right.
How long is this design good for? I mean, is there
That is their price through the duration of the project.
the duration of
They start
Yes.
at the beginning, they go all the way through the end. They'll do the bid forms, they'll oversee the work and everything else.
And if I might also point out that this work, we did go through a competitive bidding process for engineering services on this project. And so we had several other firms that submitted for this work, and Dubois and King was the low bidder. This number that they presented to you tonight is a revised number from their bid. It's a little bit lower than their original, but this did go through a competitive bidding process.
In tasks F and G, you don't pay for until construction starts anyway, so those are separate from design, right?
Yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries 5-2. Thank you. Item number, let me see if I got this right. 9A. Oh, yeah, we have no financial report. 9A, discussion on possible action regarding the emergency ordinance to establish a moratorium on marijuana-related business operations. The City of Caribou and its council has two major partners in the governance of our community, one being the state and the other being the federal government. Occasionally, our partners will enact laws or regulations that require us, the local governing board, little time in addressing issues that have the potential of causing discomfort to the majority of our citizens. We have received in our packet such an issue, the issue of medical marijuana businesses. So I have in our packet, the Caribou Planning Board has requested a moratorium to allow the proper venting of this issue. I have asked, if it's all possible, that Mr. Murchison, who is something to do with the planning board, address the issue. Ken, would you mind please explain? Mr. Murchison is a city employee who wears many hats. The hat he's wearing tonight is the hat something to do with the planning board. Could you just give a brief description of what you do, sir?
Okay, well, the hat I'm wearing now, I'll say, is code enforcement officer. I'm also staff for the planning board. As code enforcement officer, I'm responsible for ensuring compliance with the city's municipal codes including signs, zoning, property maintenance, business licenses, noise, water quality, and many others. And to respond to complaints pertaining to Uniform Housing Code and construction without a permit. In doing so, I can perform investigations, interact tactfully with the public, issue warnings, citations, and notices. In this issue tonight, I think what we're looking for is the moratorium being requested from the planning board. Basically, at the very same moment that the updates for the Maine statute for medical marijuana caregivers, we actually got a request for a permit. So an application came in at the very same time as the laws changed as we knew it. So the law, according to the state, state statute is perfectly legal, but our code has no reply to it. So the updates to the medical marijuana statute does provide a better process for local control. So using our local control processes, we can take a moment, catch our breath, and come up with some language for our code book in our land use table that allows us to better facilitate these permits and to do it properly within our land use and permitting.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions to Mr. Ken? Dave?
Are there people that need or use medical marijuana that are going to be prevented from getting? I mean, this is not recreational.
No, this is medical marijuana,
Right, so-
and no, the business will not be preempted. The business will continue. It's perfectly legal in the state of Maine as is applied. We've actually got 2 registered providers here in town, registered caregivers.
So what did this permit application want to do?
To give us some verbiage within our own code book and allow us to better regulate the land use. For instance, in this, the permit that's been forwarded to us.
I think the question is, the application that we received, what is it that they want to do that is different than the current code?
Right.
Right.
Right. Okay, basically, there was a request to do a medical marijuana caregivers business to do consulting and things like that. So basically an office space to consult with patients, and basically that's legal according to state statute, but we don't have anything in our code book that says that we can place that or we can grant that permit.
Was this consulting going to be giving out scripts or whatever we call?
No, my understanding is that a medical card would have to be provided or a prescription given by a medical professional.
So nobody that's on medical marijuana is going to be affected by this?
They shouldn't be.
Thank you.
This would just allow us to, as far as looking at the potential expansion of existing businesses or new businesses coming in, it allows us to say we need to get everything in a row first before we'll consider expansion or new business requests.
Jody?
You asked for 60 days. Is that going to be ample time, I assume, for the planning board to make those changes?
Whatever's the standard for a moratorium.
It's just 60 days, and hopefully then you'll be able to get that taken care of in that time frame.
City ordinances provide a maximum 60-day for an emergency ordinance such as this, but the council can extend it if the findings are that it's not been able to be addressed, but we are making progress. So it can come back to you if we need to.
An extension may involve timing because council only meets a couple times a month, planning board only meets once a month, so.
Any other discussions to Ken, for Ken, to Ken? Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to accept moratorium.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Thank you. Item 9B. Discussion of the public safety facility for the Caribou Police fire and EMS departments. Any discussion? You all have it in your packet? Manager, do you have anything you'd like to add?
So this resolution was brought to the council in December of last year. The council at that time tabled it until the two new councilors could be sitting. The resolution basically recognizes there's been a lot of work done into the study of whether a new public safety facility was necessary. In summary, at the very end, the resolution resolves that the City Council of Caribou supports the recommendation of the Citizens Advisory Committee and recognizes the need for a public safety facility to be shared by the police, fire, and EMS services. Also, that the City Council authorizes the City Manager to seek all available financing options and sources necessary for the construction of the recommended facilities. And finally, that the final funding package be presented to the citizens for approval during a future election. So this resolution itself is not saying we're not awarding this to design by any architectural firm. We're not awarding it for construction. This is simply saying we're supportive of this, so we're going to go out and try to find funding to make it work. All of those other elements would need to come in line once we have a better idea of the funding that would be available. We have cost estimates from a consultant that worked with us through the Citizens Advisory process. We know we're shooting for an $8 to $10 million project, and so we need to go after funding and see how much we can get. And at that point, we'll have a better idea of what we need to go out for, or what we want to let the citizens say they're willing to accept or not.
Thank you. Dave?
I was on that committee and we met, I don't know, 7, 8 times in a 9-month period. And we went through a lot of data and a lot of proposals and a lot of what ifs. And the fact that the fire department can get grants and use, what's the $1 million?
TIF dollars.
TIF money makes it a good deal to combine them. If we don't get the grants, then we don't do it. But I think they exhausted all the possibilities. And again, we're not asking the council to spend $10 million. We're asking the citizens, we're asking the council to send it to the citizens, and they can decide if we can afford it or not. But I think they should have that option. So I guess I'll make a motion to accept the committee's recommendations.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
But then
Moved and seconded to accept the motion. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Joan?
Because I went to several of those meetings too, and the location, and we went through a lot of information. The location was voted on, the type of building was voted on. The estimate came in at around 10 million, but with the fire department being part of it, there could be as much as a 50% matching grant. It could end up that we can get the whole building, the whole safety building, for what it would cost to build a standalone police station. And what this is, we need a police station, there's no question. We're gonna have to spend the money on that. I can't imagine anybody wanting to continue to work there. We've got to attract good cops in this town, and we need a place to put them. And by doing this public safety building together, it probably would, the chances are very good that it would save 50% of what it would cost for this, which would kind of wash as far as what the police station alone would be. And it should go, the council is not going to be making the decision, the citizens are going to be making the decision. And I think that they should have the chance, and if it doesn't work, then you go back to the drawing board and you start again. If you can't get the money or you don't get the votes, but this should be a decision made by the people in this town.
Any other discussion? Tom?
I agree with the sentiments of Council Martin and Joan. My only question is, once Chief Susi and Chief Gahagan and Sergeant Mark there, once they do all of their fact-finding missions for grants and everything else, do we still have a chance between the 7 of us councilors to beat this thing down a little bit more and really have a firm number before we send it out to the citizens of this community?
The way to get the most firm number is that you basically put it out to design and you get a preliminary design done on the project so that the architectural or engineering firm, they can say, now we've laid all this out and we know for sure what's going to go into it, this is what the cost is going to be. At this point, we haven't gone out for those services.
I'm just a little leery of sending something to the citizens of this community saying this is going to be this, but then it turns out to be $2 million more. That's my point. I mean, I think that, like Joan said, we need to do something. Absolutely. I mean, the police station is in shambles. The fire station, the guys can't even get equipment around the ambulances. It's not up to code. We have medical supplies being stored underneath staircases. I've been in both buildings. I'm actually going there tomorrow night with Cub Scouts, so I see it, and I think something needs to be done. My deal is I just want to make sure that we do this correctly and we don't spend more than we do, because I mean, like Milo said, we've got a lot of projects coming up and we got a lot of tax money to be spent, and I just want to err on the side of caution, because I don't want us to have to start raising mill rates because we got ourselves into a hole. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I just have one question, like with the school department, the extra money for like the gym and the larger music room, I think it was, that had to be voted on by the citizens. So when this comes out, when this goes out to referendum to the voters, you have a specific dollar amount. And that's what you vote on, is that specific dollar amount. Now, wouldn't you have to put it back out to the voters if something came up and it looked like it was going to go beyond that? Would you have maybe a 10% or something?
What you would do is, as you go out and you're trying to get the funding and the architects are giving us their numbers, they build into their numbers contingencies.
Right.
And typically, at this point, the contingency is about a 30% contingency because there's so many unknowns still about what's there. Again, to get a firm number, your firm would go out, they'd do additional site investigation, they'd do some ground studies so they could find out what's in the ground as much as possible before they start designing the footings and the foundations. And then they would know, again, this is the closer number. And after preliminary design, you maybe have a 15% contingency. At that point, if you want to take that number out to the citizenry, you know that, well, there's 15% of extra fluff in there, or not, I shouldn't say extra fluff, but unknowns.
So they're going to know what the price is, what they're voting on.
And to be safe, the city could say, well, the engineer's estimate is that that's this dollar amount with a 15% contingency. And if the city council says, well, we want to make sure we're covered, so we're going to add another 5% contingency on there, you can do that.
A huge amount of that goes onto the grants. I mean, you're talking potentially 50%. So.
Well, I think what happens is, if I understand it correctly, is that those grants, we will know that we're going to get those grants.
Prior.
You started out at 10 million, and you end up with a $5 million grant from. Then you would put out the $5 million to the voters, because you know that you would be assured that you would be getting those grants.
So just to give you an idea, in my last community, we had an $18 million project. And we knew that there was some grant funding available and that there was some bonding that we were going to have to do. we went out and we were able to get through USDA, the same source that we'd be going after for this one, and we were able to get $6 million in grants. And then we were able to go to the state through their department, environmental department, and they gave us another $6 million in very low interest loans. And we had another loan for basically almost $750,000 to cover the difference. And again, very low interest loans. In the end, each of the loans themselves went to the citizenry for a vote. So everybody knew, yes, it's an $18 million project, but the city's only incurring this amount of debt. And that's what went out to vote.
And if I remember correctly, wasn't there some discussion that we actually had to get council approval to go forward with this in order to apply for the grants, even to?
And that's
begin with?
basically what this resolution does,
Right,
is it
that's
says,
what I mean,
as a
yeah.
council, we want to try to seek after as much
Right.
funding as we can, and this is a show of support
Right.
for that.
So this doesn't actually put it out to vote. We will have a say again before it goes back out to vote,
Yes.
once we have a final number.
This does not put it on the ballot. This is just recognizing it will have to be there in the future, but this is not the formal action putting it on the ballot.
But this just gives both chiefs the ability to go out and look for grants, and the city to go out and look for grants for this.
And we can submit this resolution with our grant applications to say,
Yeah.
the city council's behind this.
Any other discussion?
Chief Gahey, Homeland doesn't do anything? Nothing.
Unfortunately not. It's all about the fire.
Mm.
And the state's trying to pass LD 47, which is a $25 million bond for fire station rebuilds in the state of Maine. Because of the change.
Maybe, Chief, would you mind saying that in the mic? Just make sure it's clear. What was said?
Hi, I'm Chief Susi from Caribou Fire. The state's trying to bond right now $25 million for fire department rebuilds. If you've been watching the news all over the state, there's been a lot of fire departments that are needing to be resized because of the scope of practices. The ones that didn't take on ambulance services before are trying to now, and there's no room there for it. So the state's trying to capture some money for a granting process through LD 47 bond issue, which would put $25 million in the bank for grant applications as such for communities that need to look at their options for fire departments.
Have we? How much is it going to cost just to do all this fact-finding information, to get the grants, to get the soil samples, all of that fun stuff? I mean, how much is that going to cost us?
What we'd like to do is put that work out to bid so that we would have a quote from engineering or architectural firms and say, how much is it going to cost for you to get us to a figure? And that way, again, that would come back to the council and you could say, okay, this is how much it's going to cost us to get the facts.
And will we be able to vote on that, saying, okay, that's an acceptable amount for us? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I would say that right now, the numbers that we have from Port City Architecture, they are fairly confident in their numbers because those are based on projects that they've designed and they've seen constructed in the last 1.5 to 2 years. So they know that they're in the ballpark, but if you're trying to get to that 15-10% contingency dollar amount, there will need to be additional work done.
Also, we had money set aside. Do we still have any? We had $50,000, if I'm not mistaken, set aside for Port City Architecture to, do the work that they did. Is there money left from?
The contract with Port City Architecture was for $25,000, and we did have $50,000 set aside.
There's $25,000 left from that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the TIF dollars that were mentioned under the tax increment finance plan that we have for the downtown area, it does say that we can allocate up to $1 million toward design and construction of a new fire station for the city. And so that plan is in place. We can allocate more dollars toward this in the future. up to $1 million.
Any other discussion? I have a discussion then. We have an issue of needing room for the police department. And it grew into this big project. It grew without using local engineer, which has concerned me from day one. I wanted to go through and give the citizens of Caribou a chance to look at a standalone police department to meet the needs. At some point in time, we're going to have to do something with this municipal building. At some point in time, we are going to have to address the fire department. I would like to give the citizens of Caribou more than just this one option. I would like to go out and seek funding for more than just this one option. I'd like to see how we can do this and not have to raise taxes for our citizens in light of all the things that I see coming down the road. I need a new, okay, now this is where I go in the weeds. Kick me if I go too far. I need a new pickup. I've never owned a new pickup in my life. But there's one sitting up in that dooryard up there for $60,000 that will meet my needs. And they're going to give me a $5,000 credit. Free money, grant money. A pickup is still going to cost me $55,000. Gons Berry Farm cannot afford a $55,000 pickup. What I can afford is a pickup that's 5 years old and has 60,000 miles on it. The pickups that I've been buying all my life. Any other discussion?
So the question I've had from day one on this, what are we doing with the old fire station? It's never really been answered. What do we do with it?
Up to this point, all the discussion has been to put it on the tax rolls, sell it, and put it into private hands as soon as possible.
To who? Who's buying old fire stations?
Well, your timing for, I understand your question.
It's rhetorical. I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. I'm throwing it out there. I think that's one of the questions people in town are asking. What is the reality of any entity buying a used fire station? There's not an answer. I haven't heard one that I'm satisfied with. So.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the table. Jane, could you read back the motion?
Actually, I would have the motion again, that's adopting resolution 0101 to 019 as presented.
No other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? 5 to 2. Thank you. 9D, discussion on possible action regarding the lease of the National Weather Service. Oh, excuse me. No, excuse me. 9C, discussion of possible action regarding the resolution approving the agreement between the City of Caribou and the New England Police Association. Council will enter, this is something we're going to go into executive session.
Yeah.
I'd recommend that we do executive session first before the council takes action on it.
Council will entertain a motion to table this and go into executive session at the end of this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second to go into executive session. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. We have an addendum has to deal with the fire department contract.
Yes.
That also will go into executive session.
I'd recommend that.
If it's all right with council, I'd like to address that right now. Council will entertain a motion to go into executive session to talk about the fire union contract.
So moved.
Okay, wait a minute, we got a problem.
Question. So we're entertaining a motion to table this,
Table it.
not to go into an executive session now. but to
Sorry.
table it.
You're right.
Right.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to table this issue to go into executive session at the end of the meeting.
Table it till after executive session.
Second.
Look, I'm nervous. Cut me some slack on the first meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? So moved. Now, we're going to go to 9D. Discussion of the possible action regarding the lease with the National Weather Service at the airport. This is one of those partners I was talking about that the local governing board has to work with. And in this case, the partner is the federal government. Federal government versus the Caribou City Council. How does that ring to everybody? This lease, our current lease, if I'm correct, is good for the rest of the year?
It's good for the rest of this year, yes.
So we have to come up with something by the end of the year.
Right.
It's very limited to what we can do, other than giving them the space and
Setting the time.
setting the time. This isn't a monetary issue.
Right. By federal statute, if we have an airport, we have to basically provide a space for free to weather service providers dealing with, that could affect aviation.
So, to the council, I'll say there's very little we've got to discuss. However, is there any discussion? Then,
May interject. So right now, the current lease that we're working with was a 20-year lease. The federal office of basically lease holdings, real estate right now is requesting what is our proposed new term going to be for the lease. And so it's just a matter of, are we willing to go 20 years, 30 years? What are you comfortable with in a new lease for the weather service?
yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think we give them as long as possible, so they never have an excuse to want to pull out because their lease is coming up.
That's true.
I mean, we don't get any money out of it, but there's a lot of high-paying jobs there, so.
Well, and the services, excuse me, I didn't raise my hand, but the services, I mean, I know that being able to get accurate radar information up to date really quick is a lot of people, farmers and everybody relies on that. I know with the ice machines, you know, if you get a lightning storm coming in, you better shut them down or you're going to spend 40 grand on a new motor. And they do it. They've got the systems up there. I agree with Councillor Martin. We could do 40, 50, 100, 1,000, whatever, you know, make them happy.
Did they propose the 20, or is that what we're gonna continue on with what we did before?
That's just what's in the current lease is 20.
And 20 and 20 again.
If you want to go as long as possible, I could do some research into how long that would be.
So the council will direct the city manager to put together a proposed contract to present to us later in the year? Is that how we want to, is that all right with everybody? There you go.
Okay.
Item number 9F, discussion of possible action regarding the potential sale of airport property for redevelopment.
You skipped
You
over
know, you
the
skipped
franchise.
E.
Or the franchise.
franchise agreement with Charter Communications.
Okay, Charter Communications. Oh, yeah, this is,
Yes.
this is a first read. Once again, this is a contract that's good until the end of the year.
Correct.
Haven't got to do anything tonight on it, other than just get the ball rolling.
I would just suggest that they provide us new data because this doesn't include his home and, right. So I think they must have more relevant data, or they need to provide us more updated data to make a better informed decision.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'd like to ask, as part of this, that we can talk to them about negotiating so that the city offices, some of us rely on the cable TV, especially when you have a weather event going on or a weather event coming in, and right now we've all been shut off from that. There's one TV per building. So our EOC doesn't have the options of more than one TV. The firehouse doesn't have more than an option of one TV, as well as the police station or the city office. Every building is only allotted one TV per the current contract. And if possible, I'd like to see that when we negotiate something new with them, that we're able to get more than one TV with basic cable inside the buildings to be able to view different things.
So Time Warner owns these TVs? Or they provide them?
No, Spectrum.
Spectrum provides
Excuse me, Spectrum.
only the service. I mean, we have to take care of the TVs, but they provide the service, and right now they only service one TV per building for the city. Whereas before, under Time Warner, whatever we had hooked up, we could utilize, and that's gone now.
Duly noted. Joan?
I read through the contract and I'm not clear on one thing that I have a particular interest in, and that is when you got the very basic cable, you brought it in from your wall and you hooked it up to your television set. And now, because of their upgrades, everybody has to have a converter or receiver, whatever you want to call it. Now they have, in order to get TV of the lowest, most basic service that they offer, you have to have this. And they have given it, depending apparently on who you were or whatever, some of you got a year free one, some got 2. But when that year is up, or those 2 years are up, that receiver is going to cost $7.50 a month to rent. I did some research. You cannot buy your own anywhere. It's got to be their receiver. If you're paying for a service, whether it's basic or whatever, but you pay for that basic service, that receiver should be included, because if you don't have the receiver, you can't get the basic service that you're paying for. And they should not be charging an additional $7.50 that you know is going to be $8 the next year and $8.50 the next year to get the service that you're paying for. And I would like to see if you can negotiate into the contract that these are provided as part of the service. Doesn't make sense if you're going to pay for a basic service and then have to pay for something to bring it to you when you could at one time get it right through the wall. So I'd like to see something. I mean, I can see paying for a second or a third or a fourth if you've got, but you should receive one basic converter to go with your service. You shouldn't have to pay for that. And it's my understanding you're going to have to.
Thank you. Paul?
Chief, how many employees do you have stay 24-hour shifts?
5.
You have 5. So they have one TV for 5 people. Okay.
Dave?
I'd like to see, well, number one, this big broadband deal is going to be addressed by the legislature. I don't know what they're going to come up with. But I think we should also look at grants to help situations like Bob, where instead of paying $3,000, he pays $500, And if he can convince his next two neighbors to do the same, it might be a little less, but at least have different options so that it would make him think about maybe spending an extra $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever. So I'd like to see if we could find grants to expand that. Maybe even the Northern Border Commission would be helpful for that. I mean, we should first pressure Spectrum to provide service every place, I mean everywhere, and then work from there.
There are many communities in Maine that are running that extra length, and the cities themselves own that equipment and those materials, and they then, in a sense, lease those lines to the cable providers. And so that's another option that
Something to research.
if the council wants us to try to look at some more, we can do that.
And of course, competition. I mean, is there competition? I mean,
Not much around here.
No good ones.
You folks, I've tried using that. Have you ever seen 3 children the day after Christmas and how much data they go through? It's scary. We're in an area where we've got to figure out something, but I think if we're gonna talk about negotiations and what we're gonna quote unquote talk to Spectrum about, we need to do it in executive session so that we don't lay all our cards out on the table. That's my opinion on it. So
Any other discussion? So then the procedure, as I see it, is Dennis, you will have a list of things that you've heard tonight. I expect that there might be citizens that might have other ideas. And then I think somehow, as a council, we ought to know where our bargaining power lies in addressing any of these issues with the people that we negotiate with.
And some of that we're not going to know until after this legislative session, because there's some major bills being proposed this year as far as use of right-of-way by cable providers, and as well as the not FAA.
Then I guess you could give us the
FCC.
powers of negotiating that we might have available to us as they currently stand.
Sure.
And if there is this kind of big change, then I'm going to add one to the list. Make it a one-year deal make it a one-year contract so we can renegotiate when the legislature gets done again for another year.
What is the current?
It runs, the length was,
Current franchise agreement ends this year. It's 5-year agreement.
5 year to end this year.
so I just would say it doesn't require a vote or anything. We'll bring it up at a future meeting. Keep it in the pipeline of information, but I would encourage citizens of Caribou to let their opinions be known on this subject.
I would respectfully ask the council, if we do bring this up, whatever we do, don't bring it up on February 18th, because I will be in Arizona, and I really want to talk about this thing. So that's just respectfully requesting that.
Can do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Now, can I go to F? Thank you. It's G. Yeah, what? I didn't get the updated one, huh? Okay. Discussion and possible action regarding the potential sale of the airport property. City of Caribou has received an inquiry about selling a portion of the airport property for a development project. Because it's dealing with negotiations and possible development, the chair will entertain a motion to table this issue and go into executive session at the end of this meeting.
So moved. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Number 10, council committee appointments by Mayor Gahn. First thing we'll do is we'll take each one and the current council members, see if you want to stay on it. Okay, the first one's the highway and protection. Joan, are you interested in staying? Very good. We have one position open. It's entitled member. Do we have any volunteers? Okay, fight it out. Which one of you want it? Dave? Thank you, Dave. Investment. Mr. Martin, would you like to stay on that one?
Sure.
We have, Nicole, would you like to stay on that one?
Yes.
We have one position opened. Any volunteers? Jody, thank you very much. CEGC, we have a board member, Hugh Kilpatrick. Are you interested in staying?
Yes.
Thank you. NMDC, current member is Hugh Kilpatrick. Would you like to stay?
No.
Oh, thank you. If nobody minds, I guess I wouldn't mind trying that one. I have a small loan with those people. Would you make sure that that's not a conflict of interest?
You can still be there. It's just if it ever comes up, you just need to declare that.
Okay. Personnel. I guess all council members are on this one. Phil McDonough was chair. Council will entertain a motion.
I'll chair it,
I,
unless you wants to.
I'd like to make a motion for Nicole to chair.
Oh, yes, that's right. I read that, yeah. Sorry about that.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussions? All those in favor? Thank you, Nicole. Airport. Joan, are you still interested?
I'll stay on. I would, I don't want to be chair if I don't have to.
Pardon?
I wouldn't want to be chair. Phil was chair.
Yeah.
And I'd stay on the airport, but I'd rather have somebody else.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion for Tom Hare to be chair of that committee.
Wow, that was quick. Moved and seconded.
So again, just to be clear, these are mayoral appointments that the council approves, but
No,
So
I
it's-
like this idea. No, sit back. Okay. So the motion is to have Tom be chair. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I might on that one as well. Councilor McDonough was also the council's liaison to the Citizens Airport Committee. I don't know if you want to make that a responsibility of the chair of the council committee to be that same liaison.
Do it.
Absolutely, do it.
Okay.
Make that kid do more work.
Okay, do it. You got it. But we still have one more position available.
I'd like to take Tim's spot.
Thank you. Nylander Board, we had a council liaison, Tim Jarrett. Any volunteers? Okay, we will table that one. Planning Board, liaison.
Mr. Mayor, I was on the planning board before I became council. I'd like to be on the planning board liaison.
Thank you.
I'll take, if you need one for the Nylander, fill that one.
Jody has reluctantly taken the Nylander one. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah. Municipal building. Let's see. We have a Joan Terrio as chair. Joan, are you still interested?
If nobody else is, but
Okay.
if somebody else wants it, they can have it.
Okay. Thank you, Joan. Nicole, are you still interested in being on there?
Yes.
Hugh?
Yes.
Dave?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Took care of Agency on Aging, Tim Jarrett. I don't mind being on that one. That's all right. Thank you. Housing Board. I would like to stay on that one. We would like to have a volunteer to replace Phil McDonough.
I'll do it. On the housing board.
Okay. Jody, Tommy. Thank you very much, Tom.
You're very welcome.
Mayor, can I also point out with the Housing Board, although we currently have 2 city council members sitting on that board, it's not required to have 2 council members there. You could say that those could be citizens' appointments, if you wanted to put that out that way. Or you can leave it as the 2 council members being there.
And there's nothing saying that well, no, you can't have more than 2 counselors at one meeting. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Now, I've lost the agenda. Okay. 10B, council priorities and a goal setting. Last year, the council recognized the need for aligning a goal-setting session and then a job evaluation session within the same year with the same council. One of the more important jobs for an elected city council member is to properly set forth a set of goals and then allow the city manager to achieve those objectives throughout the year. Each councilor was asked to put together the top 3 or 4 philosophy-type issues that they feel would benefit Caribou. I would like the council at this time to state 1 or 2 of those items in public and to each other. Council will go into executive session to allow our current city manager to openly express to the council what he believed to be the terms of his employment contract with the city of Caribou. Out of executive session during the next council meeting, a report will be generated with objectives to be achieved during the coming year. From this report, a job evaluation sheet will be generated and used at the year end for the evaluation of our city manager's position. I generally start on the end. This time I will start in the center and work out. This request is to ask for a general philosophy issue that you think would benefit Caribou. Nicole.
Okay. Well, my top 2, I believe, my number 1 priority is safety, and I brought it forward to the council before. I would like a proposal or a opportunity spent on putting together a plan to ensure that sidewalks are maintained and kept clean for pedestrians. I think that's critical, and I've seen a lot of negative buzz about it in the community, and I think we need to be proactive. I would hate for somebody to be injured walking on our sidewalks or in the road because the sidewalks aren't clean. And then my other focus for this year, I think, really should be on economic development. I know Dennis and Christina and Ken all have experience in economic development, and I think we need to have a plan put together on where we want to focus and what we need to do to get the city moving forward with some economic development.
Thank you. You.
My number 1 is revisiting the master plan from 2014 and all the goals and things laid out in there regarding economic development. The things that we aren't doing in there, are we not doing them because we don't think they're a good idea, or we just haven't started them, or they won't work? I think we should revisit it and reset those goals and objectives.
Thank you. Tom?
My goals fall along the same as Nicole and Hugh. Nicole especially with the safety of this community, but my biggest thing in my background is risk assessment. It always has been. You know, people used to say I'm crazy for driving 3 or 4 times around a farm, but I was doing that to look at what risks, what potential hazards that particular farm could have. I think we need to do that with the city as well. We have the issue of the River Road. We have issues with buildings. We need to have some sort of plan together so that we all can go out. And I know a lot of department heads already do this. but it's the others, and it's everybody. We all need to collectively work as a group to be able to see the risks that are involved in this city and head it off the past. We're going to save a lot of money by doing that, a lot of money. And my second goal would be, it's more of a request, if anything, I'd like to have Tim Doak from the RSU in at least once a month and give us updates on what the school is going on. You know, I share the sentiments of Milo. I can see this coming a mile away. Mill rate's going to go up because of the school. No matter if anybody says it's not, it's going to. And I'd like to see what's going on there. Because at the end of the day, folks, we're the ones that set that mill rate. So those are pretty much my sentiments on that.
Dennis, can you write these down for us? Thank you. Thank you. Jody?
I guess
Jane's getting him too.
follow along with the same as long as everybody, you know, obviously half the city's managers' wage is paid based on economic development, so as long as we know what we want for economic development, and it's easy to say, we want this done. Some of those goals aren't always achievable. And back in what Tim had mentioned with Huey, we do have a 10-year conceptual plan. Maybe we should look at that. One of those things we voted on tonight was in that plan was a public safety building that was put in there in the 10-year plan. And maybe things change in 10 years. You know, obviously, maybe we could look at that again and then maybe make it from there adapt a revised shorter plan, short term.
Thank you. Dave?
I'd like to see that the manager visits at least one local business a month by appointment and have an economic development report once a month, and included in that report would be something about his visit to that particular business.
I'd like to back you up on that one. That's a good one. They're all good. I didn't mean it that way. Joan?
I also have safety, not just the sidewalks, but I'd like to see the project for the changing over to the LED lights. I'd like to see that. If not, at least completed, get a good start on that. We could turn back, probably with the savings, we could turn back on some of the lights that we have shut down in the past. Also, the city-owned buildings and city-owned land, we talked about this earlier, but I'd like to see some good, attractive incentives for people to want to buy city-owned buildings that maybe they could rehab, turn into housing units or whatever, or some property that we have that maybe they could do something with to put something back on the tax rolls. I'd love to see, the new school is great. We have a great rec department. Hopefully we'll get a good police department and fire department if we can work something out. But to make Caribou attractive, with the new school, I really believe that this is going to bring some people into this that are going to want to live in this community. And so I think Caribou, the best we can with the best services that we have, I think can only make it so much more attractive. I'd also like to see, please, High Street fixed and things, but just basically stuff like that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, while Joan was talking, I thought of one more thing. I'd like to see department heads here. I like looking at Gary all the time, but I'd like to see more people, more department heads. You know.
Libraries.
Oh, and the library's here. I know. She's here too.
Got quite a few tonight.
Yeah. So I'd like to see more department heads here, if at all possible. I don't know if there's any sort of.
I think we're all here.
I don't see Dave.
Those are the only ones that aren't here.
Dave's been out. Straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably been busy.
That's why he's got employees. I mean, sorry. I don't care. I want department heads
Most
here.
of you have touched on some of the ones that I had written down. I will add one, and that is education to the public. I'd like to see our government more informative to our citizens as to how it works. It's why I've asked people to give a brief description of some of the things they do for the city. I don't know if our citizens actually know what all the hats are that we have in our employment. I think it's very important that our citizens see our employees when they're asked for information on the council. Information is our budgets, as such as our budgets. I would like to spend a little, or have a little more time, not long, but describing where we are in the roadmap during the course of the year to the plan that we set out when we set the expense budget, and where we're going to be at the end of the year. Could be done quarterly, something like that. I keep hearing, and an example would be, I keep hearing the phrase of, well, we have this undesignated money. I really like to have someone show it to me in the budget, where this money is and how it's derived. Things like the flow chart of our employment would be nice. And these are just little 5-minute tidbits through the course of our year in the educational process. Infrastructure, that was mentioned. And my last one would be information. Information not only from the manager to the council, but council to the manager. In open forum. Everyone knowing what everyone is saying. Information from the manager to our department heads, and department heads to the city manager. Understanding where we all are on the flow chart and how things get done. I'm a very conservative person, ultra conservative in how I spend money. I'm convinced that there's a lot of Mark Gons out there with that thought process. If I can only get the story out there, I'll win. So information's important to me. Okay, any others before we call this meeting? We are going to go into executive session to discuss those items that we had tabled. We are going to talk about this, and we will set some kind of a sheet or formula to do. Okay, one more thing.
Yes, number 11, reports of officers, staff, boards, and committees.
Anybody got anything to say?
That's me.
Oh,
I'm staff, boards, and committees.
okay.
Okay, staff, the city clerk's office wants to remind everyone out there that to license their dogs before February 1st to avoid a $25 late fee. And please come in. You can mail the money in. If you received a letter from us for last week, we have a copy of your rabies certificate. You can just send the money in. You can do it online or come in person. Please license your dog before February 1st.
Thank you, Jane. My apologies.
That's all right.
I'll get better, hopefully. Any other discussion? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session. Yes.
I have copies of going to executive session, and I am educating you. To go into executive session, it needs to be under one of the specific ones here. And when the council goes into executive session, they need to be the one. And we no longer have Councilor McDonough to be the one to tell us which number that we're going into executive session. But neither should it be your secretary's job to pick the one that you're going into.
Is the number under the agenda today?
Well, it depends on
It would be this number right here.
which one you're doing first.
Take one handed down. Alright.
You have multiple items that have been tabled pending executive session, so it depends on which one of those items that were tabled you want to go into first.
That would go under labor contracts and proposals, right?
Mm.
Both under the same.
In personal matters.
If you want to discuss that one first, then what you do is you make a motion to go into that executive session per that statute, and then when we come out, there's a new motion to go into executive session per the other statutes.
And you've got 2 executive sessions for 2 agreements, so you would go into one executive session for the police, and then you'd come out, and then you'd go into an executive session for the firefighters. That would be 2 different executive sessions.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session regarding MSRA 50405 regarding negotiation of the police teacher's contract, I believe. Is that the correct way to do that?
Second.
We'll do that one first.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you very much.